How about Rocky? Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Rocky. I have two seventh graders at Graham. And Mohan and Nung, thank you for putting this together. Grace, thank you for being here. I'm very curious, and that's why I joined. Thank you.
Nyung, you're muted.
Anu, are you there?
Yeah. So yeah, I registered as my husband's name, Vale. But yeah, Vale and Anu, we have one daughter in sixth grader at Crittenden. Yeah, thank you for organizing. It's definitely a good thing to hear from candidates, so that's really helpful.
Julia? Thank you, Anu. Julia?
Hi, my name is Julia. I actually don't have any kids, but I'm looking at filling out the ballot and just thought it'd be good to listen in and understand what Grace's position is. Thanks.
Thank you so much for attending.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Julia.
Millie?
My name is Millie Gong. I have a junior in college. I have a freshman in college. And Ellen, you're giving me hope that somewhere there's going to be a job, that there's going to be something coming back opposed to outflows. I met Grace 10 years ago, and I am a volunteer on her campaign. And I have known Grace in every interaction to be honest, to be trustworthy, to be very straightforward, and always having the kids first and foremost in mind. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing other parents' perspectives. And I hope that parents will come out and ask all the questions they want. And that's the person Grace is. She's not going to be uh, shirking or hiding from any tough questions.
Okay. So, I guess Grace now.
And you
Okay,
can
thank
take
you.
us, you can take 5-10 minutes, Grace, whatever you want to share with us about your visions, your
Okay,
goals, why you're running, all of that.
sounds good. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. I really appreciate it. Um, it is really important, I feel, to be able to speak to as many people who want to ask me questions and want to find out where I'm at and what I'm about more in person as opposed to what's on the website, all the words that are, well crafted, presumably. Um, and so yeah, I'm a Santa Clara County School Board member. I've been on the board 17 years. I was first appointed 17 years ago because my predecessor um, left the office a year and a half early to be the Undersecretary of Education in the Bush administration. So he left, and instead of having a special election to replace him, they had an appointment process. And so, as was mentioned a little earlier, I worked really hard on starting the Mandarin immersion program in Palo Alto Unified. That's where my kids are. That's where we've grown up. I've been a 40-year resident of Palo Alto. And after I started that program, I learned a ton about education. I'm originally an engineer. I say recovering engineer because I was just enamored about education and Mandarin immersion and early language acquisition when I started having kids. I wasn't big on education until then, but once I got into it, I just really loved it. And so it was my, next career. So learning all about education, self-taught, I'm not a teacher, about education, on what it takes to get more and more interested and educated about education as a whole. And so when this appointment came up, I said, okay, some of my friends said, why don't you go ahead and try for it? And I told them at the interview, which was a public meeting, that when they asked, why do you want to be on the county board? Why do you want to go for this appointment? I said, because I don't have to run a campaign. I could just really try it, see what it's like. And a year and a half later, if it looks good, I would run a campaign. And this right now is my fifth campaign. So I've been keeping to do it. I have been just really, really moved by the ability on the county board to work with kids and families programs all the way across the county, because the county has quite a cross section of not only, Santa Clara County, but kind of America. I mean, we have um, the rural school districts down in Gilroy and Morgan Hill. We have the mountain school districts up in the Santa Cruz Mountains. We go all the way across to Milpitas and Berryessa, where we have Eastside Union High School District, which has like 22 high schools. It's huge. We also have San Jose Unified, which is also huge. And then up north, we've got the Palo Alto, Los Altos, Mountain View, Wisman school districts. So we've got a huge diversity. And that's actually why I really enjoy this position more than, people ask me, why don't you run for the Palo Alto School Board? Because in the North County, we really are kind of in a bubble, almost an ivory tower. And so I really appreciate being able to get a good cross section of, America in the position in the county. The students that we take care of are generally the most vulnerable in the county, because they're kids that kind of fall through the cracks. There's not enough in the local school districts to you know get the full attention or representation even. So we as a county go ahead and collect these students over the 31 school districts. There's 31 school districts in Santa Clara County, that these kids who are, onesie twosies kind of in each district, we then kind of collect together economy of scale and support these kids. So these are, for instance, at-risk youth who have been expelled from their school district. Even though they're expelled, they still got to learn something, right? So we have continuation schools for those at-risk youth. We have schools for some of the severely disabled children. We have a deaf and hard of hearing school. We have classrooms for medically fragile kids. We have a hospital classroom down in Los Gatos. So we take care of kids that are really the most vulnerable. We take care of the juvenile hall kids, migrant education kids, kids who move with agriculture and fishery and farming. Um, we also watch over foster kids and also the Head Start preschool program. Head Start Preschool is a national program for low-income families. So we really act as a safety net for all of the most vulnerable kids in the county. And besides that, we also do a lot of administrative stuff for the 31 school districts. We run payroll, we do professional development, we do fingerprinting, credentialing. We run their computers, their networks, and that kind of, overallish kind of stuff. But that's all administrative. So usually, you guys don't hear about it because your local school boards are locally elected. They appoint a local superintendent and they hire all the principals and teachers that you all know and love. The students and teachers that we have are not generally in your situation. So they're kind of abstracted. And so that's why a lot of people don't know, what does the county do anyway? Why are they there? We're a little bit, I won't say unsung heroes, but we're a little bit of a hidden jewel that a lot of people don't understand or recognize that we fill the gap for a lot of the kids and families who really, really need extra support. So that's kind of my story. Are there any questions about that or things that people want to bring up?
Well, yeah, we can move on to
Mm-hmm.
the question and answer kind of
Yeah,
period.
sure.
So depending on how many people joined, Jung and I were debating how to do this. But since we don't have a huge number of people, I think maybe we could just let people ask their questions verbally rather than having Jung and I kind of moderate them over text.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
So I
Yeah.
guess if you guys want to speak, you can raise your hand, or it's under the little heart react. You can raise your hand or you can just unmute and speak.
Yeah, we have a small enough number of people that you can just unmute and ask a question.
Okay.
Hey,
Thank you.
this is Bear. Grace, thank you for that intro. You actually answered my number one question, so I
Yeah,
really appreciate that. Um,
sure.
and I guess I never really paid hardly any attention to the Santa Clara County uh, superintendents
Report.
until a few weeks ago when the superintendent was fired. I really have no idea what was going on there, why that happened, or but as much as you could comment on that, I would
Mhm.
appreciate your perspective.
Sure.
And even I also didn't know that there was some people disparaging you,
Oh,
and I have no idea why they would do that. So yeah,
Well, it's politics, so they're always going to have a little bit of give and take. We'll put it that way. Um, but let me address the superintendent. So yes, the superintendent, um, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, was determined by a majority of our board. We have 7 people on our board. 4 of us voted to terminate her without cause, and that's a technical term which was in her contract that you can terminate, you know, basically at any time without cause. And because it's stated that way without cause, we can't say why. I mean, it's not part of the deal to say why when you terminate without cause. Terminating without cause gives her a severance package. She'll get basically a year's worth of salary, and it's like, thank you very much for your service, and let's all move on. Um, because it's also a personnel issue, she is our employee. It's a kind of employee confidential issue, so we're not allowed to talk about kind of the reasons or, discussions about it. But we do report out the vote, which was 4 people voting for her to be terminated, 2 people who voted against, and then 1 person who abstained. Um, I do take a little bit of exception to some of the press comments that this was very abrupt, or some of the people who have talked about, why was she terminated, without any community input or any discussion or any explanation. Well, we're not allowed to explain, and we're not allowed to discuss because this is considered closed session. But I can say the things that are public, and that is that we have had performance evaluation discussion about the superintendent almost on every board meeting agenda since last October. So we have been talking about the superintendent's performance evaluation for a long time. And the other thing that I can say that's public also is that about, I think in September, there was a posted board meeting for a closed session about superintendent performance evaluation, but there were 2 documents which were public that were attached to that agenda item. One document was a letter from the superintendent's lawyer saying that we actually cannot have a closed session discussion about the superintendent because we don't have any employees. So his statement from her is that basically we don't have any employees because she's a constitutional officer. Her position is, stated in Ed Code. We don't quite agree with that. I mean, the contract that we have with her is an employment contract. That's a public document. You can look that up. It states the terms, her salary, that we, can give her a raise, we give her a performance evaluation. So it would seem that that would mean that we are her employer. But that letter, which was in public, stated that her lawyer and she state that, she cannot be considered an employee because the county, but they actually said in the letter, the county the county board has no employees. So we kind of disagree with that, but that was stated in public. And then the other public letter attached to that same meeting was a letter from her cabinet. So there's 6 assistant superintendents, 6 or 8, something like that. And so they all signed a letter that likewise said, our board is creating a Brown Act violation because you cannot have a performance evaluation closed session, which is a Brown Act kind of classification of agenda. You can't have that because you don't have an employee. So again, it kind of says that we can't do it because we don't rightfully have an employee to even have a meeting about. So again, we disagree with that, and we went ahead and had our meeting, and continued. And actually, the assistant superintendents, they wrote a kind of cease and desist. Stop, don't do this. It's not right. They didn't say it's illegal, but basically, don't do this. So we did it, and we continued to have discussions, and finally did make the decision at that 3 weeks ago or so to terminate without cause. That's kind of all I can say about it. Although, if there's any other things that you want to ask, I can tell you if I can talk about it.
Could I ask you when her contract was scheduled to run out if she wasn't terminated?
So her contract initially had like 3 year or something like that time frame, and then every year when we do a performance evaluation, which is stated in the contract, if she has a satisfactory performance evaluation, then she can have her contract extended a year. So every year her contract was extended a year because she was satisfactory. But we did not extend her contract last year because that's also a public kind of announcement that would be made when we do that every year, but we did not make that announcement last year. And her contract right now, I think, expires technically 2026, something like that. But when you terminate without cause,
you're saying if she's satisfactory, then she gets a new 3 years?
No, she gets an extra year. It's a single year based on the performance evaluation this year. Then the 3 years out, she gets another year out there. So she kind of has a 3 year buffer, if you will.
After she's found unsatisfactory.
If she has a satisfactory evaluation, yes.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Did that
I'm
answer?
sorry for the background noise. That was somebody else, not me.
That's okay. Did that answer your question, Bear?
It does. I was trying to figure out whether this was a tempest in the teapot, but it sounds like she still has quite a bit of life left on her contract. I'm a lawyer, so I get the idea that there's not everything you can say in public.
Yes.
I can also understand the public would always like to know more information about what's going on and why. And it creates a frustrating situation.
Yes, unfortunately, it is a tough one. And just to be perfectly clear, by terminating her without cause, that is immediate. So the extra time that her contract would have gone through, that's cut.
Was there an option to terminate for cause?
There is an option to terminate for cause, and that's spelled out in her contract also, which again is a public document. If you want to look it up or send me an email, I can send it to you. Terminating with cause is generally a stickier project because when you say you're terminating with cause, you have to say what the cause is. Mm-hmm. And she has the opportunity to say, no, that's not a valid cause. And so when you state the cause, generally you have to have a rock solid, bulletproof cause. So sometimes in the past with other cases, you would have to hire an investigator, investigate the situation that caused the cause. That takes time, that takes witnesses, that takes, discussions and testimonials. And even if you come out with that cause, the superintendent always has the option to say, well, that's not true, or, to question that, or say that that's not all really there, or the investigation wasn't fair or something. I mean, that's why terminating without cause, you don't need to explain anything. So that there was that option, but our board decided to go with without cause. Anything else?
Does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question about, and like Bear hadn't paid attention to the Santa Clara board at all.
Sure.
And just wondering, what is the engagement with, say, our school district in terms of, we've finances, budgeting, or operations? Is there any direction that the county board gives?
So the county board officially approves all of the local school district budgets. So I think it's every month we get the monthly report and we approve that budget and send it to, the State Board of Department of Education. Generally, that's, I won't say rubber stamp, but unless there's some big flags, we're pretty much, the finance departments in each of the school districts are pretty solid too. So they give us a budget that looks like it's balanced and positive, and it goes forward. Now there are sometimes school districts which go into the red, and I'm trying to think. The last time there were a couple of school districts in the past that we had to put a kind of a temporary controller in charge of because they were having fiscal issues. But that was what we call a unqualified budget. And so there's different, levels and criteria of, running in the red, running in the black, running in, mud color or something like that. So as far as budgets go, we do an overview of it, but we don't have direct control, only if we have to take it over for a while. Basically, the school boards, which are all, locally elected, and the superintendent locally, they have their local CBO, Chief Business Officer. They come out with their budget and stick to it. We have no control over how much they spend here or there. We can't tell them, spend more money there or here. It's really their autonomous decision on how they spend and control their budgets.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
I wanted
We
to
have-
welcome Happy. Happy joined us. Thanks for joining, Happy. We're in the question and answer part of the meeting now, so if you have any questions, feel free to just unmute yourself and you can ask Grace.
Happy to say just listening in for now.
Yeah, sure.
So Grace, I guess I can ask my questions.
Yes, please.
People this is regarding this quote in the Mercury News about, it's I'm not going to jail for violating the Brown Act. I don't care if I break the law. What do you have to say about that?
So I did not say what was said what was quoted in the article. I categorically deny saying that. And what happened was that there's a trainer in a Brown Act training class that I took who said basically nobody has ever gone to jail for violating the Brown Act. And I happened to repeat that statement from that trainer, and it was out of context to what the article is talking about. I certainly have followed the Brown Act 17 years. I never in 17 years have been accused of violating the Brown Act. I have whole respect for being law-abiding and following the Brown Act. It's tough, as I was describing earlier, closed session things that you can talk about with the public, things you can talk about with a non-quorum, with a subset, things that you cannot talk about with a quorum. And so the Brown Act, it's kind of tricky. It's not the most straightforward, but I adhere to it. I believe in it. I totally understand why it's law, and I respect it. I have no reason to say I don't care about it. I totally did not say any of that. And so, I've actually asked the Mercury News once. I'm coming up with my second request to do a retraction because that article is completely, false. And so I haven't gotten a response from the editor-in-chief yet, but I'm going to send another one and remind him that this is really important. And especially, you kind of have to question the timing. Here it is 2 weeks before the election, and this kind of comes out conveniently or not. I mean, the email where I said the quote from that trainer, that's from May 2023. And I sent that email, the whole context of it, to the editor-in-chief to say, look, this is what I exactly quoted from a trainer. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, you're not going to go to jail. I'm not qualified to say that. And so this trainer, who was a lawyer, said that, he'd never known anyone to go to jail for the Brown Act. It was in that context of an email from a year and a half ago, or a year plus, a year and 4 months ago, that, is now pulled into this article and comment that, is suspect in the timing, in my opinion.
I'm sorry about that. I say I'm sorry about that. It sucks when your name is being, put in the mud. So I'm
Yeah,
you're fighting.
well,
Thank you.
it certainly doesn't help, but sometimes politics gets kind of muddy and dirty and yucky. And that's the part of politics I hate. I love doing the stuff for the kids. I love talking to parents, families, and trying to help everyone that's trying to do the best for all the kids in the county, for their own individual kids and for other ones in the program. But this, politics, parties, endorsements, that stuff is not my favorite part of this job, put it that way.
If I can just underscore, Grace is very kind. If I can put a firmer underscore, literally, the town crier, actually, Los Altos town crier pointed out that it is interesting the timing that in 17 years of Grace's service, she has not had one allegation, but it's 2 weeks before when there's not enough time to refute the FUD. And I think all of us are sick of the negative campaigning. And I think if there's one thing all of us could change about politics is this mudslinging for every side. So that's my underscore.
I've seen those negative ads and they're sickening. The fact that Grace has represented us for the past 17 years, to my knowledge, has never been charged for a Brown Act violation. And to my knowledge, has never had any ties to Marjorie Taylor Greene. And yet I keep seeing Facebook ads trying to link the two people together. It's sickening. It's completely, there's no credibility behind the attack. I mean, anybody who knows that she's been a long-serving member of the school board should know that there's no credibility at all to these accusations.
I am abhorrent of Trump. I voted for Hillary. I voted for Obama. I voted for Biden. I am anti-Trump. So the connections that have been thrown around that I'm, Trump and DeVos is like, gag me. Sorry, that's just gross. Sorry. Adamant. Obama, Hillary, Biden. I'm sorry. That's the way I am. And Harris, gotta say it. Harris Walls.
Well, if you have a Harris Wall sign in your yard, that may be the perfect response to that nasty attack ad.
Yes.
This is my front yard.
Yes.
We also have Anne join us. Welcome, Anne.
Hi,
how you doing?
fine, thanks.
Thank you for joining.
I'm sorry to be late.
It's okay. I think Anu put a few questions in the chat, so we can ask that, and then after that, if anybody want to ask more questions. So Anu asked, are you affiliated with any political party right now?
Okay, so right now I am no party preference. I am not Democrat, I'm not Republican, and I'm not signed up for the Independent Party. There's actually a party called Independent. I'm not signed up for that any. So I'm considered NPP. No party preference.
But you obviously do have one.
I do?
Mhm.
Which one?
You just told us that you vote the Democratic ticket.
No, I said I voted for Biden, Hillary, Obama, and now Harris. But I've
What
voted
do
for
all those people
Republicans in the
have in
past.
common?
I'm sorry?
What do those people have in common?
They were the right people at the right time. I have voted for Republicans in the past.
Oh, really?
Yes, I have.
Hmm. Reagan? Bush 1, Bush 2?
Oh, I don't think so. I think Reagan, I was too young. I don't remember. It's been a while. I think I voted
That
for
old.
yeah. I can tell with the white hair it can be deceiving. I think I voted for McCain. That one I was pretty solid and sure about, but I don't kind of remember the rest of them so much.
I think the second part of there's three part to Anu's question. Did
Yeah.
you solicit any endorsement or recommendation from the Santa Clara GOP? Or
So I did
meant
not.
to say, maybe she meant to say Silicon Valley GOP? I'm not sure, but
Santa Clara.
okay.
Santa Clara. Well, or Silicon Valley. I mean, they're all kind of the same. It's a Silicon Valley GOP, which mainly is all of Santa Clara. And so I did not solicit an endorsement because I was a Republican in the past. I know them, they know me, and they have endorsed me in the past when I was a Republican. So this time around, they, called me and said, "Do you want an endorsement or a recommendation?" Actually, they didn't even say endorsement because I'm not a registered Republican, so they cannot endorse me. But they can make a recommendation for me. And I kind of said, well, if you want to, but I certainly didn't put it on my website or, push it as far as being a big plus. I mean, if people want to recommend me, I'm not going to say no, but I did not solicit a recommendation from them.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I wanted to add to that. It sounds like every vote counts, and
Oh,
I guess
heck yeah.
that goes back to Evan. I was just saying, go back to Evan Lowe when he won by like 5 votes, which is insane. Like
Against
5
Samidian,
votes.
absolutely. Right.
Yeah. So I can see why you're like, hey, if you're gonna give me votes, I'll take it, but I'm not gonna like, broadcast it or whatever. But every vote counts.
Yeah, and she didn't ask them for it. No.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't ask for it. They offered it to me.
And then the third question was, were the Santa Clara County trustee involved in recommending the extraordinary audit of Mount View Woodman School District? She say, I'm really not against any of the above, but just be helpful to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Sure thing. Sure thing. So, as far as the extraordinary audit, some of the board members did hear about it, and some of the board members were concerned. I mean, some of the evidence that showed contracts which kind of didn't, not that it didn't make sense, but seemed kind of excessive. So I am a fiscally, I won't say fiscally conservative. I watch the books. And so I will almost at every board meeting when we have our budget adjustments every month, I will question big ticket items. I'll say, why is this here? What does it mean? Because sometimes it's, in financialese, and so it's not easily interpretable by me or the public. So when I saw and heard about some of these contracts in Mountain View Wisman, they sounded kind of funny to me too. And I know some of the other board members, although we didn't talk about it, I know that it was something that was brought to their attention also. But as far as specifically recommending the audit, I did not send any message to the superintendent to say that. I don't know whether the other board members who, heard about this might have, but I specifically did not send any message to the superintendent. Does that answer that question, or is there more details than that?
I had a chance to ask my question earlier today about the status of that extraordinary audit. But if anybody else on this thread had questions about the status of the audit, I thought it might be helpful
Sure.
to talk about that.
Yes. So the audit was requested by our superintendent, by the former superintendent, sorry. And that was requested, I believe, like a few days before she was terminated. And so the request went in, I believe it was approved, but as part of that request, the county office is supposed to provide some kind of statement of work or some, scope of what the audit might cover. And I believe the county office has not submitted that, which is kind of a hang up. And so I have that one. I have made some inquiries with the new superintendent, with the interim superintendent, to say, okay, I heard this audit was approved. I mean, the former superintendent sent a message to all the board members saying that this extraordinary audit was requested, and I think her message said it was approved, but that was kind of all she said. So then, after she was terminated, I find out that, well, it's approved but not complete. That the FCMAT, which is the state auditing organization, they can't start without this kind of scope of work that the county office is supposed to provide. And so the county office CBO has been a little slow in getting that scope of work.
Well, can I ask, is there anything that the Board of Education, the Santa Clara Board of Education could or should do to help shepherd that process along to a result?
And so the best we can do, or at least the best that I've done, because again, I haven't talked to the other board members who have kind of, had any involvement in this. The best that I can do is that I've reminded the interim superintendent, who, walked into a hornet's nest, sorry, I have to say. So I reminded him, this is probably not in the top 5 of your priority lists, but it is like top 10 for these constituents who actually are my, area constituents. So I do care about it. I would like him to, poke the CBO a little bit more to get that done, because the CBO's kind of dragged her feet for, a week, 2. And, when the request was made, it should have already come with kind of the scope of work. So in that it didn't, that I'm not crazy about that delay.
Is that something where we can write to the CPO and like push her along? Is that something we do or should do?
You could. I mean, if you want to, her name is Stephanie Gomez.
Okay.
So her email would be SGOMEZ,
Okay.
Stephanie Gomez at seccoe.org. And you could say that you're a, concerned citizen parent in the Mountain View Wisman School District, wondering about this approved request. At least that's my understanding. It was an approved request, but that all the steps have not been completed.
Thank
And
you.
try to understand the progress for that.
Thank you for that.
But yeah, I'm not sure.
I think Anne has a question next. She would like to,
Yes.
can you please tell us your positions on charter schools?
Okay. So charter schools, my position is that I support good charter schools. I also have denied bad charter schools. And in that, there's good and bad charter schools, just like there's good and bad local school districts. I have to see which ones are doing the best for the students that they can. In that, charter schools were written into Ed Code as being, the words are there, competitive with the local school district. They have to meet certain standards, and therefore, by competing with the local school district, raise the bar, hopefully, for everybody. I mean, it's not a secret that, they're trying to put the other one out of business, but rather they're doing innovative things in either curriculum, culture, infrastructure. I mean, charter schools have some flexibility, similar to startups. So a startup company, kind of lean and mean, but they're going for a niche or a special thing. And if they make it, then kind of, everyone else hopefully starts copying or, doing the same kind of thing so that the whole quality of everybody goes up. And so from a charter school standpoint, they have to be good or else the parents don't have to go. I mean, parents can vote with their feet. Well, I mean, I think that's true. Is that not reasonable, Anne? I mean, I see a little skepticism.
There's a lot of skepticism about this because what happens is the people with the fewest choices don't have the option to go elsewhere. And what happens is you see a biodegrading of the sources and resources that are available to public school students who are not allowed into the charter schools. The charter schools often tend to be deeply unstable, just like we saw with Summit Denali closing up without notice. I toured Summit Denali looking for a better situation for my son, and I saw that it was a deeply unstable school, knowing absolutely nothing about it. It was always concerning to me that it was allowed to be a charter school, given the problems I saw in a 1.5-hour tour of the campus. As a parent with no inside knowledge, I was like, this is non-sustainable. This is not working. And then I was unsurprised to see that it had closed, and I was very, very happy I had not decided to send my child there. So I feel like charter schools run without oversight. And this idea that we should make public school on the tech model is one of the problems we run into with Dr. Rudolph, who seems to think that he should be treated like a tech executive and he should treat our schools like they're a playpen for tech ideas, which they're not. They're public schools that hold our children in sometimes not great situations in the service of making other people feel like executives. It's been a rough go for my family. And we actually chose at our own expense to send our children to other schooling as a result of the adverse effects of the governorship of Mountain View Isthman School District. I see that also with funneling resources away from public schools and into Bullis. Bullis does not allow open enrollment by anybody who may wish to attend. It was founded on the principle that the Los Altos Hills students should have a place to go to school. Those are the people given preferential enrollment. Then their little siblings
are. Not now. That was changed.
That was changed, but really, really late in the game. That was true until a very short time ago. I feel like the abuse of power is tremendous in the charter school system.
Well, and so I have to take an exception to that because when the Bullis Charter School was started 20 years ago, I was not on the board. I only got on the board 17 years ago, but I was at that meeting because I was potentially with my Mandarin immersion program trying to work with Palo Alto to make it a magnet school, just like all the other magnet programs. But in the back of my mind, an option was always to be a charter school if we had to, or that was a possibility. So I paid attention to Bullis because it was right next door, right? So when I went to that meeting, yes, they put in a preference for Los Altos Hills, and they were approved by that board at the time. When they came back for renewal after 5 years, I was on the board, and I actually voted against the renewal because they still had that preference for the old Los Altos Hills Elementary School district boundaries, and that they'd already reboundaried. So that was a obsolete set of boundaries that, were kind of, I don't want to say contrived, but, constructed out of history and a lot of baggage, as opposed to, what was here and now at that time for the renewal. And I said at the meeting when I voted no, that I would rather see they put in a preference for north of El Camino. I mean, that's kind of been a discussion point for a long time in Bullis.
North of El Camino.
I'm sorry?
El Camino runs north and south. What side of El Camino is that?
So that's that part if you think north and south. If you say it's east and west, then it would be east. So that's like the crossings, the Coles, El Camino with San Antonio.
Yeah, and when they tried to board the Mountain View Isthman School District, the only thing I really think Rudolph has ever done well is repel that boarding.
That was the different. They actually did approve the charter school, but they put a lot of conditions. And the conditions are what kind of killed it. There were some pretty tough.
And the conditions were that you have a demographic that reflects our demographic. And my beef with Brolas has always been that it doesn't reflect the demographic.
So the law actually says that it needs to work towards being a similar demographic with the community where the school resides. And so
Does
some
that
people's
mean
interpretation, just to
Los
say, some
Altos, or
people's
does that mean
interpretation, I'm sorry.
Santa Clara County?
No, some people's interpretation is that that's a community demographic determined by the census, as
Yeah, but what
opposed
block
to,
groups does that cover? Does that cover the block groups enclosed in Los Altos, or does that cover the block groups enclosed in Los Altos and Mountain View, or the block groups enclosed by Santa Clara County?
well, and so that it doesn't say it specifically, but that's where our county board, because we have a very strong charter school oversight department.
No, you
And
don't.
so, I'm sorry?
You don't.
Okay, that's difference of opinion, sorry.
Yeah, but if Denali can do what Denali did, you don't.
Well, so Denali, closed. I mean, they were successful for 5 years.
No, they weren't.
I think it was 5 years that they lasted.
They ran for 5 years, but when I went there to visit a couple years before they closed, it was already a shoestring operation. All the teachers were unhappy. It looked incredibly unsustainable.
So I'm glad that you were able to get those insights.
Well, it's actually not my job.
No, it's not. But some people are insightful just because they are.
Well, it's the job of the Board of Supervisors of Education for Santa Clara County.
Well, and so Summit did close. And with respect to Bullis, it's also an oversight issue that we are examining. We've actually sent some letters of concern to Bullis Charter School saying that their demographics are not reflective of Los Altos School District, which is kind of where we came down on the, census of the community versus school district reflection. And so we've sent letters of concern, and even in the most recent renewal, one of the conditions specifically is that Bullis needs to set some targets to use as a goal towards meeting demographics. And the only thing about setting goals is that once you put a number on it, it's kind of a quota, and quotas aren't really legal.
Well, I mean, one very simple number is that the special education population tends to be about 13% of our demographic. Now, I tried to get my special ed school student over there, and he was refused because he was a special education student. You are not, if you're looking only at the demographics of country of origin for our ancestors,
including special ed.
You're not including special ed students.
It's
So I think if you do propose some benchmarks for that school, it has to include special education services for future students.
Well, that was one of the demographics that was specific in the target request for setting Bullis's renewal conditions for renewal.
I think that could dismiss their application for renewal given past behavior.
I just want to, sorry to interrupt. I just want to do a time check. We're coming up on 8 o'clock. We can keep going because there's a few more questions. I want to make sure we get to them, but I think it might be good to move on to the next topic or next questions. And you have some other questions in the list. Can we move on to your questions on digital education?
Yeah, well, just to finish the comment there is that, and certainly my email and phone number are on my website. So we can have a conversation, over coffee, tea, or boba and continue if you like.
Okay. Let's hear about your thoughts on digital education then.
So digital education. So digital education, unfortunately, is a Wild West. The whole ed tech area is, growing, and people are doing all these great and wonderful things, but no one really has any standards for what's great and what's wonderful, and how do you measure which ed tech is, just somebody's, ooh, cool idea, or, ooh, I saw a great demo at a show. So I actually have a friend who's really, really interested in working with the Department of Education to try to come up with some standards and framework so that we can really measure the quality of education tech. Excuse me, because there's all sorts of aspects, right? Not only of how secure the software is, because security is an important thing for kids and confidential. Um, Also, kind of behaviorally, how much is it appealing versus addictive? You know, what kind of behavioral things are we training our kids through some of this ed tech? Um, and so it's unfortunately not well defined. I have seen and heard a talk. Sorry, I need a little glass of water here. That Khan Academy, Sal Khan, he has a cool AI based kind of tutoring stuff besides the regular Khan Academy, right, which does the iterative learning and training about all kinds of subjects. He has now, and it's got some kind of cool, cute name, Conlingo or something like that, that not so much tutors by telling you the answers, but actually does some training on the interaction between the student and this AI tutor so that it coaches how to think about solving a problem as opposed to just, giving you an answer. Um, it's still, I guess, kind of in beta, something like that. But he had a real interesting talk, and I felt was more responsive to the concerns of quality ed tech as opposed to just being, oh, let's throw AI at it. It can only be better. It's like, well, not always. Um, and so that's kind of my position. Goals would be to, put some boundaries on ed tech on digital education to make sure that it's good quality, it's well vetted. Um, there's references all the way around as opposed to, I saw it at a show, let's pilot it in my class, and oh yeah, everyone else in that grade should try it now. That's not really the best way to put out ed tech, in my opinion. Does that answer the question okay? You're muted, Anne.
Super asking about ed tech tools, although when I meet college students, they're a little bit shocked at what real education is like in that it is interactive. You're required to write, you're required to synthesize, organize, persuade. Those are not things that recent high school students have necessarily been asked to do, thanks to ed tech. What I'm really concerned about is that kids are given an open laptop and told to make good choices. That does not allow for the fact that many of the platforms our children have access to during the school day, at the school's instigation, at the school's provision, it's assuming that children are able to resist the addictive nature of the tools that they use when online, when they choose for themselves, such as Reddit, cool math games, YouTube, whatever. When I've approached the schools about this and I've taken some field data on it, I see 20 to 30 to 35% of the classroom of a middle school classroom at Crittenden playing on YouTube all the way through a class. I think, why are they even spending time in this place where they are learning nothing? So my question is not so much what tools do you choose, but should that even be there in the first place, or should each child be given a piece of paper and a pencil and told to write something? So when I've advocated for this tremendously for my own child who has huge screen addiction problems, thanks to being a special education autistic student. And I've been told over and over again that he is making poor moral choices and he should make better choices.
That's wrong.
It's totally wrong. And I don't see any move inside the district to do anything but drink more Kool-Aid and find another cool ed tech AI special tool that will make them smarter. Well, the college students I know are in distress because they've never had to teach themselves anything.
Right.
And I would
They've
suggest
filled
that
out Google Forms all the way through high school.
I would suggest in Mountain View Wisman we have a particular problem with this because our superintendent has a history of choosing half-baked software programs and introducing them without proper pilots.
Yeah, but it's not even the software programs that they choose to educate our children with. It's the software programs our children have access to just by nature of
That
having an
is, I agree. That's another
unleashed,
issue.
unhedged internet access.
Yeah, and they're supposed to be parental control software, things like Securely, but those don't work properly. They don't give us the
And
control that
blocking, right,
They
blocking.
don't work. They don't
I,
work.
I know.
The teachers my kids like the best and the teachers my kids work for are the ones who always opt to have less or no screens in their class.
Technology.
Mm,
Okay.
mm.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah, and I'm
Chris was
gonna
trying to
jump
say
in as
something.
I've had a son go through Mountain View High, and I'll say if you're taking AP classes, there is plenty of writing and prep for college. The problem with Mountain View middle schools is they're not very academically challenging
No, they're
for
not.
smart students. They set a very low bar,
Yep.
and so it's not so much the technology; it's just that they're not focused on trying to challenge smart students. They just want them to go entertain themselves while the teachers work with students who are struggling to catch up. And that's actually the reason why I pulled my son out of Graham and put him in Bullis Charter. And it was a night and day difference the minute he went to Bullis Charter. That was
Well,
a
Bullis
school where
wouldn't
you
take
had
my
to
kid.
write and had to do work, or you weren't going to make your A. If you tried to slack off, you were going to get bad grades.
I wish that Bullis had been the choice for my child, but because he's a special education student, his application was refused.
I don't think the law allows them to do that.
No, it doesn't.
It's a lottery system, so I think everyone is supposed to get a fair shot. And I actually live outside Los Altos. I was able to get in. My son was able to get in as a Mountain View only because slots were opening up at that point in time.
Yep.
At the middle school level. So I'm puzzled by the rejection of a special ed student. I've not heard of that happening before.
Well, every special education parent in this district could legitimately sue this district and win if they had the money and the lawyers to do so. Most of us have neither, and so we don't. We just age out.
But special ed is a terrible challenge. And not only are the students challenged from their inherent special needs, but the parents are extra challenged because they have to advocate like mad.
And it doesn't work.
And well, it often doesn't work, or it's just exhaustive. And partially it's set up that way because the schools have a unfunded mandate. They have to serve special ed students, but they're not given enough money to adequately, appropriately serve every student to the needs that they have.
There seems to be endless funding for football fields and lights and uniforms.
So that's a whole
Oh
different
my
thing.
God.
But I do want to respect people's time. Certainly, I invite you to have a conversation with me, offline. Do I need to briefly talk about some of these other questions here, like PAC donations, largest donors?
Yeah, why don't we talk about that and then maybe wrap up? We want to respect your time
Okay.
too as well,
Yeah.
Grace. But
Yeah.
everybody, like you said, is free to follow up with Grace
Please.
for further discussion. But why don't we make that the final thing we talk about is the PACs and donations.
PAC and large donations. Okay, so if you want to find out about donations, it is available online on the I think it's called NetFile. If you look at the county, Santa Clara County Registrar of Voters website, somewhere in there, there's financial reporting that all candidates have to meet, and that lists donations and also at different points in time lists all the expenditures. So you really get a kind of cash flow to see how the money goes into and the money goes out to. So as far as the links to in the chat question here, the links to the GOP, I kind of mentioned that earlier. So happy you'll have to look at the video previous for that. As far as PAC donations, I have received PAC donations from the Santa Clara County Charter School PAC, and then the California Charter School Association PAC. And both of those represent charter schools. And their representation of charter schools are basically for the schools that, unlike Bullis, are serving the underserved. And they are available in many districts that the students did not have another choice. So for instance, Allen Rock School District out in Eastside San Jose, Franklin McKinley School District, also in Eastside San Jose, and even in San Jose Unified. The school districts there for a certain population of parents was not satisfying them. And because you live there, you got to go to school there. So those parents actually went to find some of the founders of the Rocket Ship Charter School set of schools, Alpha Charter Schools, and ACE Charter Schools. So those school districts now had another choice that the parents basically really sought for. And those school districts have had to get better because their charter schools in those districts, some of them approved by the district, but some of them approved by us on appeal. Those charter schools have improved and brought scores up, quite frankly, for a lot of those students. And so having that choice was important. And the Charter Schools Association then largely is made up of charter schools that serve those kinds of communities, underserved. And those communities don't have a lot of political say. I mean, they're underserved, under-resourced. A lot of those families, immigrant families or low-income families, they don't have a political voice. So the Charter School Association, kind of by representing them, gives them some voice, and that's why I have accepted donations from the Charter School PAC. Can I answer that question? Okay. And you're muted again.
Thank you. That makes it very clear.
Okay. Thanks. My 5 largest donors, I think the Charter Schools PAC has donated the most. If you look online on the county registrar of voters, kind of dig through that a little bit. And if you can't find it, just email me and I'll send you the link to find out.
Yeah, could you just post it to your website before the election?
So I kind of don't want to muck with my website, but if you email me, I can send it to you. Yes.
Okay, I'll forward it then.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Or you could just send it around instead of posting it to your website.
Send it to who?
The various people who are discussing your election online.
Like
Wisdom chat
Mohan?
Grace, I can get that information from you and I'll share. I mean,
we'll share with anybody who's interested in that.
Okay. Yeah. I can send it to Jung and Mohan. Yeah.
You have nothing to hide, and
no problem. Sure.
We're all about candidates, so I appreciate that.
We had 3 people who joined, and I'm sorry they might have been waiting in the waiting room for a while, and I didn't notice. Peggy, Ananth, and Commodore 69. Grace, do you want to wrap up, or do you have time to answer any last questions from them?
I have some time if people have more questions. Sure.
Okay. So welcome, Peggy, Ananth, and Commodore. Do you have any questions you'd like to? We've talked about a number of things already, but if you have any questions for Grace, now's a good time to ask. You can unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi there. Thank you for this meet. Great. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Peggy.
Yeah. Hi there. Thank you. And thank you, Nong and Mohan for for organizing this, because this is my first meet and greet with you. And you probably already said this already, but who are the teacher unions that are endorsing you, Grace?
So the teachers union, of which California Teacher Association, CTA, is the, headquarters, mothership, whatever. So CTA endorsed my opponent. And so the unions underneath, the local school district unions of the local teachers, so like Palo Alto Unified Teachers Union, they endorsed my opponent. And the other ones are kind of, some of them are discouraged from endorsing me because the teachers' mothership kind of said, don't. And so unions, as it turns out, teachers' unions typically categorically are against charter schools, good ones or bad ones. They just do not support charter schools, frankly, because charter school teachers are not required to be union members, like the Ed Code did require. Now there's recently the option for teachers to not be in the union, and that's relatively in the last 5 years, 5 years, something like that. So charter schools and teachers unions are in conflict. And that's kind of like water and oil. You can't make them agree. They just separate, and it's not one fault or the other. It's just kind of the way it is. So there
Right.
are no teachers unions that support me, although the county office teachers union, the president is a very good friend of mine, and we've worked together in a lot of things. I am also supported by the SEIU, which is a classified employees union, and that's paraeducators, admins, clerks, technicians, anyone who's not a teacher. That's the certified employees. So classified employees are SEIU, and SEIU has endorsed me.
Grace, can you explain why teachers' unions are categorically against good or bad charters?
Because charter schools don't require their teachers to be unionized. And so that strikes at the heart of the union survival, of just union membership. And that's, in my opinion, not necessarily the best reason for kids. It's survival, though, for the union. So I understand it. I just don't personally agree with that. And,
There's
debate on unions. So certainly, yes.
Yeah, but they're still considered public school employees, right? And so, like, do they fall under like the CalSTRS? So that right? That's separate from the union.
Right, CalSTRS and CalPERS. Some of the charter schools use that, but some of the charter schools use 401k kind of programs for their pension and retirement kind of plans. And so again, that's part of the flexibility of a charter school. They don't have to follow necessarily all the same kind of bureaucracy that the local school districts must follow.
So can I say something about that? I feel like the lack of union in the charter schools is a big reason I saw for the instability that I saw, even though it's not my job, in charter schools. And that's because the charter schools can really take advantage of their teachers. They have no legal defenses against exploitation, which is what I saw in charter schools of teachers. And I think that's why charter schools tend to be unstable and poor places to place children, especially children like mine who don't like instability. I also think you get a higher level of professionalism from people who are also unionized because they have collective bargaining abilities.
I was going to say I saw the exact opposite from what you saw at Bullis Charter. It's financially stable. The teachers there were a cut above Grand Middle School. They were engaged,
of course you did.
Worked the extra mile. They were, and I don't think they're unionized. They were excellent, world-class teachers at Bullis Charter School. So charter schools can have excellent teachers and excellent administrators.
What is the annual requested donation from?
And can you please let Chris finish?
Yeah, but Bullis is an unusual case. You're supposed to pay $5,000 to $6,000 per student.
Let me give you another link, and I will send that to Nyung and Mohan. The county office, because we've authorized, I think, 19 charter schools right now, we have a charter school data book, and it is all facts and figures. It lists teachers' average salaries. It lists administrator salaries. It lists the demographics of students and staff, so that you see in many of our charter schools, the staff reflect the demographics of the students, which is different from a lot of the local public schools. It lists the test scores for the charter school and for the school district that it's located in. So it's really a treasure trove of data of all charter schools in Santa Clara County. I'd recommend taking a look at that to get a real comparison for all charter schools, because Bullis is kind of a special case, yes. Different.
Yeah, the money pours into Bullis from the parent community. So it's not unexpected that the level of teaching there and the level of education there would be extraordinarily high, given the individual contributions that are requested from the parent community.
So
It's a
therefore,
lot
take a
like
look at
Palo
the other
Alto with its
schools.
PIE services, where the funding is just turbo boosted by the parent community. And so we're not surprised to see that level of teaching and that level of education. It's actually supported by the finances and not by
Absolutely.
public
So
taxation.
at all charter schools, donations are voluntary, and they don't go into. You can attend without donating. I would say I would gladly pour money into Graham if it actually offered a decent education. But I've become disenchanted with the level of academics it provides.
And
Yeah.
plus, parents do pour plenty of money through MVEF into Mountain View Wisman schools, and it doesn't make them any better.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the middle schools are orphans because our children are there for such a short amount of time. The school districts shortcut them.
Middle
You're
schools are
not there for
definitely
enough time
the
to
toughest.
invest in them.
Yeah.
Middle schools are the toughest. Absolutely.
It's possible that middle schools should be broken apart.
That's something completely
Yeah.
different.
This is,
Okay.
You know,
Outside of this
that's
conversation.
far
Yeah,
outside
but
the
like,
scope of this
Any other
conversation.
questions at the new people,
Yeah, I want to
Peggy?
make sure Peggy and Anand.
Anna?
I think we
Well, we
lost.
lost
Did we
Commodore.
lost Commodore 64?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I just want to hear some of the conversation. Thank you for hosting.
Yeah, of course. Glad you could join.
Sure.
Grace, do you have any last thing to say? Maybe why people vote for you, what you hope to accomplish in your next term, perhaps? Just.
So, I think I've made a difference in my 17 years. In this last year particularly, I've worked with families down in Gilroy, medically fragile kids with severe disabilities. I've worked with Head Start families in the east side of the county with low-income families, and really in the Head Start program, it's a national program, 50 years. I mean, it's been around a long time. And besides having a high-quality preschool program, the other thing I love about Head Start is that it works to empower parents. And you see these parents who very often low income, working 2 or 3 jobs, English language learners, they are getting engaged in their kids' education at preschool. They're learning about getting elected as representatives from their preschool centers. They meet once a month, learn about reading financial reports, learn about Robert's Rule of Orders, how to make a motion, how to have a meeting, how to do, agendas and such. And so the career skills and leadership skills that the Head Start program facilitates for these parents is incredible. And I've done a lot of work this particular year with the Head Start program and the parents just to build and share their governance ability and strength. So I think that I've made an impact that a lot of people, I think that I'm doing a good job, and I want to continue doing it 4 more years.
Thank you so much, Grace. I guess at almost 8:30, you stayed
Yeah.
24 minutes longer than when that's planned. So thank you so
No
much.
problem.
Yeah.
I'll send
Well, Grace, I want to thank
I'll
you for
send
your
6
service
minutes
too.
on the homework that I'll send to you guys to
Yeah.
forward to everyone else.
I want to thank you, Grace, for your service. 17 years is amazing. And, this is I can tell it's a labor of love for you. You're not doing this for the fame or the big bucks. You generally seem to care about the kids, and hopefully some of the misconceptions that people have had, unfortunately, the other side has been spreading a lot of misinformation. So hopefully you're able to dispel some of that with these folks here today.
I think I feel like misinformation is often spread without the instigation of the person that people say are spreading information. I haven't been following it on Facebook. I don't know what's been said at all about this race.
There's a website you can find that is, pure attacks against Grace, and it's
I
paid
hate
for.
that stuff. I hate that stuff.
Yeah, and it's paid for by her opponent. So it clearly says on there. And Grace doesn't run that kind of campaign. She runs a clean campaign. So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
Just another sign of who she
But
is.
I often think there's sort of a proxy attacks going on that are escalating political conversation to divide us further, which is really too bad.
And on Facebook, I routinely got Jessica Spicer ads that have compared Grace Mah to Marjorie Taylor Greene.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is ridiculous.
Yeah, and they say, she's Trump and Betsy DeVos, and it's all that's just, it's garbage. It's nonsense. And, that alone turns me off of the other side, the other candidate. And I know Grace is running a clean campaign. This is who I am, take it or leave it. And that's who she is.
Well, I'm still wishing that people would approach the digital addiction problems we see in our classrooms. It was really what broke us away from Mountain View Wisman. We left it completely. We took my other neurodiverse child out of it and are paying for private school unexpectedly, which is going to impact our children's lives for the rest of their lives because we also have to pay for our college. But we're spending that money now to avoid Mountain View Wisman's mess.
I agree with you, and we've had digital addiction problems in my household as well.
Yeah, and it's a problem for my son in high school as well.
Yeah, same.
I see a lot of Me Too going on there. Am I
Yeah.
right?
I can't stand securely.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Crap.
Yeah.
It doesn't do what it's supposed
What
to
I
do.
can't stand is that the administrators, the board, the principals, the supers, they all say the kids are just making poor choices when the kids are being given highly addictive platforms to spend their time on at leisure.
Yeah,
I agree.
During academic learning times.
I agree.
It's
I agree.
sad.
It's addictive for adults too. How do we expect our kids to be able to resist these things,
Grace, I don't want to drag you in this conversation. I'm reaching out to you because I worked at Parents Helping Parents, which is a nonprofit down in South San Jose who serves families with special needs. And lo and behold, I have a child with severe mental health, ADHD, and terrific screen addiction, and it's no fun. And I'm feeling for you because it's awful. It's a club none of us want to belong to. I have a child who finally got to college, and I just want to reach out to you to tell you that the hell that you're going through now, that there's hope, that PHP will help you. There are resources there, and special ed is never fully resourced. They are always under-resourced, and it's an awful situation, but I want to give you hope that what you're fighting for and the sacrifices you're making now are going to pay off.
I shouldn't have to pay for an alternate education because the Mountain View Wisdom
School District can't pull all over. Like you don't sleep. You have no time. I'm sure you would have an amazing full-time, great job. However it is, right? But your full-time job, even if you work that you're not getting paid for, is taking care of your kids. And I feel for you. And I want to give you hope that there's resources and to keep on fighting. Because
I feel like I don't need help. I need compensation. I need to be paid for the job that I didn't apply for and I didn't ever accept and I've never gotten a paycheck for. I serve as my son's case manager and as educational specialist, and I have done so since kindergarten. He is now 16. This is a situation where the county and our own school board, of whom I see a member on this screen, you guys have messed this up. And I see people say they'll fix it, but I don't see people actually fixing it. The person who becomes special education director on my kids' campuses is the person who is best at denying, diffusing, and delaying services for kids who need them. The people that it bothers that they're denying, diffusing, or delaying services, they leave for private practice, leaving the person who can accept the situation to become the person who makes the most money. It's I
asked you to reach out. I asked you to reach out to Parents Helping Parents because
I talk to them before and after every IEP meeting. I donate to them every winter.
Thank you. And you're making a difference, Anne.
Yeah, but it's not really making a difference for my kid who still struggles every day with screen addiction, looking at his Reddit account, which he doesn't even have. He doesn't have a Reddit account. He just opens it and reads it during class because the school insists that he have an open Chromebook on campus.
I share your pain. I share your pain.
Yeah,
I
I
think
do
it's
as well.
maybe that's something we have to deal with in our district. And let's connect and we can, because I cannot stand those Chromebook for the life of me. I cannot stand them.
Well,
So
it's something that the boards, including the county board and the school boards, need to cope with. It's something I have advocated for on campus. I have advocated for it in every IEP meeting.
Yeah.
I don't see a willingness to change or a willingness to consider change.
I think with the new board and new superintendent, I'm hopeful they will be receptive to this because the current board and superintendent, they're, as we know, they don't listen.
Yeah, I voted against them every time.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that our program managers used to sit in individual IEP meetings with our parents, but we got crushed. We didn't have the funding. So I'm looking for that angel funder to come so that we can go back to doing that, because that's what you need as a parent. You need someone walking this path with you. And
I tried to work with SELPA, which I thought would be an advocate, but SELPA is another way for the school district to avoid lawsuit. It is not an advocate for parents. It's not a parents union. It's not a students union. It's a litigation avoidance technique.
Okay.
I guess, Grace.
I think we should probably wrap up.
Yeah.
It's,
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending.
Open and raw.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Grace. Thank you,
Grace,
Ed.
thank you so much.
Everybody.
Yeah,
Good night.
and best of luck to you, Grace.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.